right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank anybody for showing up at this point. I'm actually just sort of doing another equipment test, sort of a format test, just getting back into streaming after being gone for a number of years. My name is Tommy Highway. I am a ufologist. I'm also a former government employee and an engineer. I've been working in IT for over 30 years. Um, the reason that I'm actually into ufology, UFOs, and especially what the president has recently come out and said, as well as others, is I think it's time for disclosure. I think it's time that the human species learn that we are not the only game in town. We might not even be the only intelligent species that resides on this planet. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of hang out here and check out my settings and all that. But you're welcome to chime in on the chat. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I appreciate you for coming by. All right, looks like I've got a viewer. I want to welcome you. Thank you very much for dropping by. Basically, just doing sort of an equipment test today, but I will interact, of course, answer any questions you might have. My name is Tommy Highway, and I have had a couple of UFO experiences. The first of which absolutely removed all doubt for me as to whether or not we're alone in the universe. I mean, I was clearly looking at something from beyond this planet, this level of technology. And ever since then, I've been really into this because, it blew my mind. I mean, I remember when I had the first experience, and this was back in 1990. I remember the range of emotions because I had a while to watch what was going on. I basically drove up on an alien spacecraft that was having some sort of mechanical issue, and whatever it was doing, two others showed up, and I'll tell you the story later, but two others showed up and repaired it. Whatever they were doing shut my car down, so I didn't have a choice but to stand there and watch everything that they were doing. And it was life changing, life altering. And I mean, I already knew that UFOs and aliens existed because I grew up about 30 minutes away from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And I recall being in grade school, it must have been the second grade, I had this female teacher that was really into this subject, specifically the Roswell crash. And she taught us with interactive materials, at least at the time, and all that. You understand this is the 70s. But she taught us about how the Roswell wreckage actually ended up in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as well as the bodies, and that the wreckage had moved on to other places, but the bodies had always remained there at Wright-Pat, and as far as anybody knows, probably still is today. Now, that was second grade, I think. In the fifth grade, I had another teacher that was so into the subject that she brought in a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel to speak to us about Roswell. And he had interactive materials, like diagrams and things like that. Not photos, but diagrams. And he actually is one of those things where they passed them around to the whole class, that sort of a deal. And my understanding is the guy got in some pretty big trouble for doing that. I heard about that, years later. But the bottom line here is that we are not alone in the universe, period. There's something that's out there flying around in our skies that we have no idea what it is. The government claims to be ignorant about it. They don't know what it is either. They're also claiming that there haven't been any crashes and things like that. At least that's been the claims for decades. I mean, I'm in my mid 50s, and it's the government has always been very stone faced about this. They've always come out and said, look, this isn't real, this swamp gas or weather balloons or Santa Claus or whatever the case may be. They've made up every ridiculous excuse in the world. The problem that they have, in my view, and this has been going on now for about 10, maybe 12, 15 years, is that everybody has a kick-ass camera in their pocket nowadays. Everybody does. So we've gotten a lot more footage and things that, and really higher quality footage than we've ever been able to get before. We know that there are things flying around the skies. The government, what was it, back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, they came out and admitted that there are things flying around the skies that they have absolutely no idea what they are. Okay? We had the whole drone incident on the East Coast, Eastern Seaboard. That whole thing went on right before the last presidential election. The bottom line is that, look, this is real. Okay? It's time for humanity to deal with the fact that it's real. Okay? This is not a joke anymore. This is not a tale told by a drunken hillbilly. It's none of that. Okay? This is real. Right? We've got real advanced technology that is flying around in our skies, and we have absolutely no idea whose technology it is. But we can be relatively certain that it's not an adversary's technology. I mean, the Russians' technology is basically incompetent. The Chinese technology at this point, well, that's what was defending Venezuela, and look how that worked out for them. So I just think it's time that we, pucker up and we be honest about this with one another, because it's time. I mean, it's just simply time. To continue to deny the existence of alien life, I think, is just insulting everyone's intelligence. Tim Burchett, he's the congressman out of Tennessee, very southern gentleman, but he keeps referring to underwater bases in about 5 different locations in our oceans. And what's interesting about this is every time that Mr. Burchett talks about this, you can see he's freaked out by it. I mean, he's bothered. And Anna Paulina Luna is the same way. There's several other congressmen, members of Congress, that men and women, I should say, that have actually seen evidence, direct evidence of these craft, of beings, and the whole 9 yards. I know that because over the years, I've been getting tips about this. I was on a UFO show called UFO Man for a number of years. I interviewed I don't know how many people, including Lou Elizondo, Terry Lovelace, who was just in that recent documentary, Whitley Strieber, who is a wonderful man, very, very nice man. His story is it's depicted in the book called Communion. There was also a film back in, I want to say 89, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was the year I graduated. But anyway, a movie about the book, Communion. Mr. Strieber, again, he's a very nice, very dignified person, but unfortunately, he's the reason that we have the anal probe joke. Okay, his case facilitated that joke. He knows that. He's not into it. I don't blame him. Again, couldn't be more of a nicer, more dignified person. I absolutely believe his story. No question in my mind that this has happened to him. Okay, he's had experiences where he's been abducted by aliens. Terry Lovelace is another example of that. Terry actually has implants in several places in his body they show up on a CT scan. They show up on X-rays. They show any kind of scan they do. These things show up. And the problem is he doesn't have any scarring where these things are located on his body. It's just flat, smooth skin. But yet something has been inserted underneath that skin and left absolutely no scarring whatsoever. Now, we don't have that kind of medical technology in this country or this world. We just don't. So I'm very happy that I think we're going to finally get some information I don't know if we're going to get full disclosure from the government, from the Trump administration. I don't know if we're going to get that. But all I'm asking for as a ufologist of 30 years and as an American citizen is very simple. I want to see the same information, the same data, okay, be it photos, satellite images, videos, whatever. I want to see the same thing that Anna Paulina Luna has been talking about, because it clearly has changed her big time, massively. I want to see what's freaked Tim Burchett out so much. Excuse me. I mean, these people have clearly been in these skiffs, which is like a private meeting that, you know, can't be eavesdropped on, that sort of thing. And clearly these people have seen evidence of something that really freaked them out. Okay, I want to see that too. I think that's what I think the government needs to release all the information that it has on these things first. I'm talking about the videos, I'm talking about the photos, things of that nature. Let's let the public digest that. And then hopefully the Trump administration or Trump himself will finally come out and give a speech that will verify that these alien craft are actually coming to this planet, that they are in fact life forms, that we have in fact recovered bodies, okay? Because we know that's happened, all right? And again, to continue to deny the fact that this has happened, that this is something that's a real, tangible thing, is insulting everyone's intelligence in this country, okay? I recently worked with a guy, a nice guy, really like him a lot, very, very talented IT person, okay? He was a security officer. I mean, I'm talking about like network security, okay? And this has been, I don't know, 3 months ago or so. We got to talking, and I said, well, looks like Trump is probably going to, you know, disclose information about aliens. And this guy started hysterically laughing, okay? And he's like, there's no such thing. They don't exist. He's not going to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And that's when I sat down and I took some company time, and I explained the first experience that I had with alien technology. This guy's worked with me for, you know, several years, knows I'm a straight shooter, and knows I'm not going to lie to him. And by the time the conversation was over, I'm pretty sure that he was a believer at that point. But the bottom line here is that to continue to deny the existence of something outside of our realm of understanding and probably other life forms is just foolish at this point. I mean, it's a waste of time. Anybody have anything to say on that? The other thing that I really wanted to kind of talk about is the whole the Nancy Guthrie situation. Now, you know, I tell you, when it comes to law enforcement, I'm not in law enforcement. I don't know anything about that. Again, I've been in IT for decades. But I used to watch television, especially back in the 1980s. Okay? So picture this scenario, all right? You've got a crime scene in a home where only one person lives. Okay? There's no other person living there. There's not like there's a family with kids and all of that. Only one person lives in that crime scene, in that home. All right? Now, that person that lives in that home is now missing. There's signs of a struggle. There's blood apparently in the house as well as outside on the porch. Okay, so we know something happened there. This person was harmed in some way. And what did Sheriff Nano do? And I don't even necessarily blame the sheriff as much as I blame the actual detectives, the investigators that work for Pima County. Because I just can't come up with a reasonable explanation as to why they would take a crime scene, again, that nobody else needs access to. Nobody else needs to go into that home, okay? Nobody else lives there, all right? And why the sheriff and that whole organization would have the audacity to open up that crime scene, just a couple of days later is, I just can't get my mind around that. And now, instead of you letting the FBI take control of this investigation with their lab, their lab resources and things like that, this sheriff sends this genetic material to Florida. Now they say there's mixed DNA. They're not sure what they're going to do with it. It's a big problem, right? Well, yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be all kinds of mixed up DNA because they let everybody and their brother into that house after the fact. I mean, just within a couple of days of the crime occurring. I mean, they let everybody in there. So they could be picking up literally anybody else's DNA in there. Could be anybody. I can't imagine what, the Guthrie family must be, going through. I mean, my goodness, this is horrible. You can't even put yourself in those people's shoes. Most people, anyway. That being said, I mean, we're talking, we're into 3 weeks now, and I'm sad to say that because there has been no proof of life or anything like that at this point, I don't think they're going to find her alive. I really don't. I'm really sorry to have to say that, but she's an 84-year-old woman that needs medication. Obviously, there was some kind of trauma because there was blood in the house. I sort of have a theory on what I think happened. I personally, again, I don't know anything about law enforcement. I'm just trying to put together 2 and 2 and see what it equals here. But essentially, I think that it was probably a burglary. Okay, that those guys came to that house. Somehow they obviously came in contact with Nancy. Something happened. They probably panicked. They probably hit her in the nose because that looks like a nosebleed to me. And I'm told that the blood spatter inside the home looks identical to what's on the patio. So I think they probably knocked her out, most likely, freaked out, didn't know what to do. So they went ahead and took her with them. All right. And then they probably, and again, I'm just speculating here, and I hate to be I hate to be pessimistic about it. I really do. But I think that they probably killed her, probably dumped the body somewhere. There's an awful lot of desert out there with nothing on it, nothing but scrubs and cacti and things like that. And she's probably in the desert somewhere. That would be my guess. I don't know if they're ever going to solve this. I don't know if it's solvable because of the fact that sheriff and his organization allowed the crime scene to become contaminated. I mean, if there could be 20 other people's DNA in that home now that wouldn't have been there before if the sheriff had not opened that crime scene up. I still can't get my mind around that. Now, I personally believe that he's going to do 2 things, okay? Because I think the longer that he withholds the assistance of the FBI, the longer he denies, I should say, it's actually a video. I'm not sure why they're doing that. It looks like they're trying to, I think what they're doing there is they're trying to censor the way that they've collected this information, I believe is what they've done. So they're trying to hide all the digits and all that stuff because they don't want, our adversaries to know what kind of surveillance capability that we truly have. But anyway, back to Nancy. I think that sheriff is going to end up resigning. He's going to end up stepping down. It's just a matter of time. And I think the longer he waits to hand this case completely over to the FBI, the worse off it's going to be for his career. Probably several of his investigators as well. So this is... Oh, hey, bud. How you doing? Oh, good to see you. Glad you stopped by. I'm actually just kind of testing equipment right now and sort of trying to get back into streaming, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, there's a website out there I'm trying to interact with. It's the government website that everybody uploads their all the videos and photos and all that to. And for some reason, I'm having a problem with this platform interacting with that website, so I'm working on that. Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I think Trump is getting ready to come out and really blow our minds. Again, I don't believe that he's going to come out and just absolutely admit that, we have, alien beings and technology and all of that. I don't know if he's going to do that, but I do think that he's going to release that information and let the people make up their own minds. That's how you do this. I mean, let's see these close-up videos. We know for a fact, okay, and Tim over at UFO Man will tell you the same thing. We know for a fact that there is tons of video that pilots from like fighter aircraft and just military aircraft as a rule have crystal clear cell phone video that they took with their own phones, okay, of these things flying in formation with them. Like they look over and there is a bona fide, no bullshit UFO right there. And we know that. We've been told that for years. We want to see those. We want to see those videos, those photos. Okay, we know that they exist because Anna Paulina Luna, Tim Burchett, and various other members of Congress that have been investigating this, they know. They've come out and said it. We've seen it, and they look freaked out. Okay, I want to see that too. My God, I've spent enough time and effort on this subject in my lifetime that I think I'm owed. Frankly, I think I'm entitled to see that, and I think everybody else is too. So anyway, but yeah, back to Nancy Guthrie. I don't think this is going to end well. I don't believe that. I don't think she's coming home. I think if she were still alive and someone had her and was trying to ransom her, I believe that we would have already seen some sort of, proof of life, a video, hair sample, hell, send a finger, whatever. I believe something like that would have happened, and because it hasn't, I no longer believe she's a living person. What are your thoughts on it? Snoopy, you there with me? So what are you up to today? Here's another video here. Let me see if I can make this thing move. Are you seeing that video? This was actually sent to, I believe it was the UK, if I'm not mistaken, and they didn't have any explanation for this one either. But the problem is, here we go again with just grainy video. It's a white dot. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a bird. It could be a plane. Almost anything. But for whatever reason, they feel like this is unexplainable. Now, myself, what really got me into this, and I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but I'll go ahead and share it with you. This was 1990, and I was living in northern Iowa with my girlfriend at the time. And it was the night of the Mike Tyson Buster Douglas fight, okay? And that's the first time Mike Tyson ever got beaten, actually. So my girlfriend and I, we were going to have like a little private party and watch the fight that night. I was going to cook some food and we were going to have some drinks. I mean, I was 19 at the time, but it was a college town, and I looked a lot older than I actually was. I hardly ever got carded. It was actually a rare thing. But so anyway, she actually worked in the evenings at this Target store on the very edge of town. And this is back when Target stores were a lot smaller than they are today. There wasn't like any groceries or anything. It was just like a tiny department store. Had one little loading dock, okay, for the store. That's how small it was. But if you were to walk out the front door of this Target and look to your right, all you would see would be rolling commercial cornfields, tens of thousands of acres of them. Now, these are like commercial grows, so it's not the kind of thing that has like farmhouses and all that. You saw silos occasionally here and there, like groups of silos, but no farmhouses or anything. And that went on even back behind the Target store. Now, the thing about these big fields, these big commercial grows, is they have to have roads, built basically so they can get, equipment in and out and get the corn. Excuse me. They can get the corn and equipment in and out, that sort of thing. So, those roads were in pristine condition. They were taken care of in the wintertime and stuff by the county, and they were just really nice roads. No one ever drove on them, only during, harvest time or whatever. So I would take my car out there, and some of these roads are like a mile long, right? I had a pretty hot car at the time, and I was a kid. So what I would do is I would be waiting for her to get off at work, and she'd get off at work at 10 o'clock on the nose. So about 9:30, I would drive my car back there to those roads and, race up and down the roads. No cops, no people, no lights. It was perfect, right? Did it all the time, really. Well, so that night, the night of the Tyson fight, I'd already gone out all day and gotten everything we needed to cook with and all of that stuff. And, so I got bored waiting for her to get off work. So it's like 9:30. And I drove up to those roads behind that Target store where she worked, and I was running my car. And I want to say it was like the third trip down this road, and I'm getting on it pretty good. I mean, I'm probably doing 60 or so. This car was brand new. It had 3,000 miles on it, right? This car starts kind of shimmying like this, I'm like, what the hell? Looked down at my gauges, and everything looked okay. And then all of a sudden, it started really kind of, shimmying like this, and I thought, oh my God, it's an earthquake. And I'd never actually felt an earthquake before. I'm from the Midwest. So I stopped the car as fast as I could. I jumped out of the car. And as soon as I did that, the car started really jumping and missing and everything else. And all of a sudden went completely dark. I mean, you know how, like when your engine dies, okay, and you still got lights and stereo and all that stuff going on because, you got, you're taking power from the battery, right? Yeah, well, everything went completely dark. So I get out of this car and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what did I do to this car? My dad's going to kill me because, he bought it for me. And I'm standing there basically scratching my head and I'm got the door open to the car and I'm just kind of looking into the car, if you will. So I'm basically facing north, all right? And as I'm figuring out what to do here, because I'm in the middle of nowhere, there are no cell phones yet or anything like that, the car's dead, what the hell's going on here? Something catches my eye. And I look up, and maybe 500 to 700 yards in front of me, to the north, was this large, it looked huge, this large, very dark red sphere, okay? And I mean, this thing was, I want to call it maroon colored light, if that makes any sense. I mean, you could see it, against it, because this was like a clear night, clear winter night, not a cloud in the sky, no moon, no wind or anything. And yet there this thing was, right? So I start watching it, and it's moving. It's moving from the north to the south. So as it's moving from north to south, I turn my body, so I am now looking to the west, okay? And this thing gets to I would say probably 2 o'clock position, and all of a sudden it drops. It loses about half of its altitude, just and stops, man, stops cold. And I'm like, what the hell is that's when I realized, okay, this isn't a blimp, this isn't a balloon, this isn't, Santa Claus, this isn't any of that. This is something different, all right? So as I'm watching it and it dropped, all of a sudden it starts like emitting or expelling, I guess would be the way to say it, this very bright, almost like molten material. And it was so bright that it lit the area up like it was noon on a sunny day. And I couldn't even look at this. It was so bright. So I had to shade my eyes, and I'm watching it happen off the paint job of my car. And it's still kind of a bright reflection coming off of that. And anyway, it did that a handful of times and stopped. And then I look back up at it, and then it starts gaining altitude while it's traveling south. So kind of like at an angle, if you will. And it gets to about my 11 o'clock position, so it crosses like the road I'm on, and then it dropped again. This time, I thought it was going to hit the ground. I mean, I braced myself. I was like, because I thought it was going to hit the ground and explode, whatever the hell this thing was. But it didn't. It stopped short of the ground, and it started emitting some more of that material. Again, couldn't look at it. Too bright. So, after it dumped all that stuff the second time, something catches my eye from the north. So I turn my head, and here comes a really small orb, really brightly colored. It was, I'd say, orange like the sun, and it's making a beeline right for this thing, okay? And this thing stops moving at that point. And I'm watching this, I'm going, oh my God, wow, look at that. While I'm watching that, another one, a smaller one, just like it, comes over my left shoulder and scared the living hell out of me. I mean, not that I already wasn't terrified, I was, but I mean, it was just, and there was no noise or anything, just boom, there it was, oh my God, and it comes basically over my shoulder. And what happened was the one that came from the north disappeared behind the main object, and the one that came over my shoulder pulled up right next to it. So it would be something along the lines of, say, a basketball being straddled by two ping pong balls. And they just sat there. They didn't do anything. And I'm watching this, what should I do? I mean, I'm freaked out by what's happening here. But I'm pretty sure they're not concerned about me, because to me it looked like the big one was in trouble and the smaller ones pulled up next to it to service it, to repair it. So as I watched, the big one would sort of like like a big light would swirl inside the big one and then stop. And like little points of light, and then it would stop like that. And it did this a handful of times until all of a sudden, boom, it comes on, if you will. It turns on, and the big one becomes exactly the same color as the other two. And the second that happened, all three of them, boom, shot up in the air, tens of thousands of feet in the air. They got so high that they looked like, I could still see them, but they looked like one object. And they boom, and then boom, they all just took off to the south and were gone like that. Now, as soon as that happened, the lights and stereo on my car come back on. All right, the stereo's blaring static for some reason. And because I was jamming, when this happened. So I jump in the car, and the stereo had like rocker buttons. You push like one side, and then the volume goes up, and you push the other side, and it goes down like that. So it takes a few seconds for it to go back down. But this static is like, and it's real loud. It had a hell of a stereo in the car. So I reach over and I hit the power button on the stereo. And then I realize that the clock is blinking 12:01. Okay? Well, that was odd, I thought. And I kept being tempting myself to go back into that field and to see if there's any burn marks. But I figured I was going to be late to pick up my girlfriend, and I was already freaked out by what just happened. So I thought I better, haul my ass back home, but back to get her, rather. So I get in the car, spin it around, take off up the road, and I had electronic presets on the stereo, buttons. And one of them was the local college station. And I hit that thinking, the other people may have, reported this because they did news and stuff. And I realized that all of the presets on the stereo had been reset to the factory. Now that's odd when you consider that I ended up driving this car for 12 years and a little over 350,000 miles. I had the battery out of this car, I don't know how many times, sometimes for days at a time, and it never reset the stereo. Diagnostic, reading the fix, whatever. Yeah, it was needed. That's what they were doing. I mean, I would bet my bottom dollar that those two smaller ones pulled up next to it and repaired it. I mean, because it was clearly having a problem. Anyway, so I roll back and pick up the girlfriend. I'm so late. She's not there. It's kind of a long story after that, personal story, but that's the very night that that answered the question for me personally as to whether or not we're alone in the universe. Because whatever was going on there, it was technology that we didn't have back then, 30 some odd years ago. We don't have it now. And in fact, I'd say it's probably going to be a few thousand years, if I had to guess, before we even have technology like this. In terms of the orbs themselves, I got the impression that there were objects in the middle of it. Maybe I don't know why I knew that, or why I thought that, I should say. But yeah, I mean, it was just amazing. It blew my mind. It changed my life. I mean, that was even the night that I decided that the woman that I was with, I had to leave her. Because when I come home and tell my woman that I've had this incredible experience and my eyes are probably this big or round while I'm doing it, I expect her to believe me. Okay, because I get that much respect. It's not like I come home lying about these things. I mean, she essentially accused me of being out with another woman. That's the reason I was late to pick her up after I told her this story. Okay, and I'm like, you mean to tell me you think so little of me that I was out with another woman, and of all the excuses that I could come up with as to why I was late to pick you up, I land on UFO experience? Really? I don't think so. But yeah, and there was another experience about 5 years later that was even more profound, I guess, than this one. It was more interactive, I guess. In fact, I was on a boat with 3 other people, and I'm telling you, that experience changed the lives of everybody in that boat but me, because I was already aware of the fact that, yeah, we're not alone, But I'll save that for another time. See, we have another person that's joined. I want to thank you for coming by. Again, this is just sort of a test run. I'm getting back into streaming after several years of being absent, testing my new equipment and new interface and things like that. So I'm not doing so well with the interaction on the web right now, but I'll be working on that tonight. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Yeah, it could. He says, Snoopy says that you probably seen something inside the orbs moving around and did not realize that you've seen it. Yeah, that could very well be, Um, I'll be honest with you, and not that it mattered all that much as a kid, but I wore contact lenses and I was not wearing them that night. I do regret that because I probably would have got a little bit more of a crisp picture, to be honest. But I was real bad about that as a kid, not wearing them, and yeah. But it really kind of didn't matter because this was. I mean, there was intelligence at play here. There was technology that we simply cannot produce in this country or on this planet. That was in play. Yeah, it's hard. Snoop said, asking what kind of weapons do you think we now have that the president mentioned? Well, there's all kinds of rumors about UFO technology, and if you read a book by Philip Corso, he was in the military. He was a lieutenant colonel, I think, or colonel, maybe he was a colonel. Anyway, Colonel Corso, he wrote a book called The Day After Roswell. And if you're into ufology, to me, it is like the must-have, okay? The must-read. Because according to him, essentially, we got a lot of technology from the Roswell crash. We learned a lot. Fiber optics, for one thing. That was a concept that was, we never even considered until we found that wreckage. The other thing is there were medical devices, medical lasers. Supposedly, that they found a medical laser laying out there on the ground, and they sent that in. Anyway, we've copied that technology. What else? Fiber optics. Oh, the printed circuit itself. There have been rumors for many years that the printed circuit itself is something that we got from the Roswell crash and basically reverse engineered it. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if weapons have been recovered. The Russians supposedly found a crash craft in Siberia, and they were able to retrieve some kind of I guess high-end particle weapon from it. And I mean, that's a rumor, who knows? But George Knapp himself came up with that one, so I tend to put some validity to it. far as that thing they hit those Venezuelans with, I don't know if that's UFO technology or not, but Jesus, that's a game changer. I mean, if you read if you read, uh, like again, the day after Roswell, there's so much good information there. Philip Corso, I believe he was an American patriot. He's the guy that had all of the information regarding Roswell and the alien presence and all of that. I mean, he had all the clearances for that. I mean, Jesus, he was the only guy in the military that could launch nukes without presidential authority. That's how deep in the military this guy was, you know. And in that book, I mean, he comes out and lays it all out, and he says, the reason I'm doing this is because I think the world's ready for this, and the young people need to know what's going on here. You know, we've derived all kinds of technology from this, and they should know about it. I think he's right. The other thing is I wanted to kind of talk about is, you know, you keep, the last couple of days, you keep hearing people talk about how Trump just admitted that the existence of aliens. I don't believe he said anything of the kind. They were talking about, he was asked on board Air Force One about if aliens are real after what Obama came out and said. And he said, well, first thing he said was Obama is not supposed to be talking about, you know, classified information. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that Trump was talking about when Obama mentioned aliens. I think he meant because Obama was talking about Area 51, and they're not allowed to do that apparently. I think that's what was going on there, and I could be wrong. I don't know. But it should be interesting. The next, you know, say the next few weeks, few months, you know, it should be very interesting. But now that Trump has sort of painted himself into a corner, he's going to have to declassify some pretty cool shit, I think. I don't know if you watch Star Trek, but there's a show out there, Picard. It's kind of one of the latest iterations of the old Star Trek, the old crew, the Next Generation crew. And if you remember, if you follow Star Trek, how the movie Generations, how the saucer section crashed on that planet. Well, they had to go back and retrieve the saucer section because there was a developing civilization on that planet. And my question is that if indeed we've had all of these alien retrievals or crash retrievals, and some were just like laying there. I mean, undamaged, no crew, you know, just sitting there like it was almost like a gift. Why didn't they come back for that stuff? You know, why didn't they come back and retrieve that? Clearly they have the technology to get here and to do whatever. Why didn't they just come and take that stuff away from humanity? You know, why let us keep it? Unless they're either so indifferent about us that they don't care, or they have a plan to exterminate us anyway, so it doesn't matter, or maybe they're trying to bring us up to speed. I mean, those are basically the three options that I see. I mean, does anybody else have any thoughts on that? So we have another person that joined the chat. Hi there. Thank you very much for coming by. My name is Tommy Highway. Just kind of doing more of a test run right now, testing out my equipment. I'm going to start streaming full time here soon, so I haven't done this for a number of years. Please forgive me, and please forgive the crudity of my current technology, but I'm still working with it. Does anybody have any questions? Think about it like this. The power that it takes for an alien craft to get here and all of that, if we had that kind of technology, that way to generate energy, think of what that would do to our civilization, our species. You know, it would be unbelievable. You know, I think that a lot of this information, I think a lot of these things have been classified from the people, not necessarily because they're concerned about. Hey, Jamie, how you doing here, buddy? Yeah, thanks for coming by. I appreciate that. But I think that it's not so much as they're keeping it from the people because they're worried about creating a panic. Now that's probably part of it. But I think the other part of this is that because we are everything, every new technology that we come up with, no matter if we create it or if we find it on the ground in a spacecraft or whatever, we always take that and use that for military purposes. That is rule number one, the first thing we're going to do. Okay? Which is unfortunate. It really is, because it lends, more credence to the fact that the only thing that humans do well is kill each other. And that's a fact. But yeah, they're probably keeping it, under wraps because they don't want the Russians and the Chinese and everybody else to know what kind of technology we have. But the thing about it is, according to rumors, and not even rumors really, we're talking about recovered documents from the KGB back in the day, things like that. The Russians have also had their own craft retrievals. Again, they supposedly have this really cool particle weapon they found somehow. But again, I don't think it's as much as they're worried about the people as they're worried about their own black projects and the secrecy of those black projects. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've decided to, I think a lot of things are going to happen here regarding UAP and UFOs, aliens and all that. And because I've been so heavily invested in that subject for decades now, yeah, I want to be a part of this. I want to come back and be a part of this because I think we're getting ready to find out some really cool shit. I really do. But thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions or anything? You know, it's like I remember when I was having that experience out there in Iowa when I was watching that. I went through a whole range of emotions. I mean, fear, anxiety, wonder. Well, one of them was anger, and I distinctly remember anger because I realized at that point that the government has been bullshitting us the entire time. They've known about this forever, and they haven't come clean about it. Again, I mean, growing up in Ohio, that close to Wright Pat, it was I would say, common knowledge that people knew about the Roswell crash coming to Wright Pat and the bodies and all that. It was everybody knows this in that area. It's like if you were to mention hey, the Roswell crash ended up at Wright Pat and so did the bodies. Everybody in that area is going to go, yeah, and what's your point? Because I mean, it's a loosely kept secret, if you will. But I mean, if we're getting ready to learn the true nature of whether or not we're alone in the universe, if it's actually going to come out, I just didn't feel like I could sit on the sidelines. I have to be a part of this. I just have to. This is in a way, my life's work. I mean, I've written a book about this subject. I've given, I don't know how many speeches about it. My God, there are just dozens. Tim over at UFO Man and we've interviewed countless people. I mean, people that are like real players in ufology, like Lou Elizondo, for instance. Really nice guy, by the way. I mean, it's time that we learn the truth. The people that are going to have a problem with this are probably still wearing a mask, so who gives a shit what they think at this point? But I think that it's time for humanity to take that next step. Yeah, yeah, right on. Yeah. Well, I was talking earlier about being in grade school in that area, and this is in the '70s. And I want to say my second grade teacher, she was all about the Roswell crash. She was real into it, and she had this like presentation for us and all that, and told us about how the wreckage and the bodies ended up at Wright Pat, and then the wreckage went on to other places, but the bodies essentially stayed there, and as far as anybody knows, they're still there to this day. And that was cool. I remember, again, that was like second grade, but in like the fifth grade, my teacher who was also into the whole Roswell thing. She had some retired lieutenant colonel come to the class and give us a speech on it, and he had like interactive. He had like diagrams and stuff. He was passing around the class and things of that nature. No photos, but diagrams, and he kind of prepared us for the fact that, we're not alone in the universe. So again, excuse me, I think it's in that area that I grew up in, the fact that the Roswell crash not only happened, but where the pieces, the wreckage, and the bodies ended up is common knowledge, man. People know this. Has anybody ever been down to Roswell, down to the museum? Because I'm going to do, I did that 3 or 4 years ago. This is during COVID. Um, well, what an experience that was. It was awesome. I, there was like a line of people. This is back just as everything started opening back up. Everybody's still wearing a mask and all of that. So I go down, I took a vacation, and I was again working for Tim over at UFO Man at the time. So I go to I walk into the museum and I wait in line because it's like $5 to get in, right? I wait in line, and there's this lady standing there, dark hair lady, older lady, she's got a mask on, and she looks at me and she goes, "Are you Tommy Highway?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Hang on a second, I'll be right back," and turns and walks away. And I thought, shit, am I in trouble? Is this a bad thing? What's going on here? And anyway, she came back with like the entire staff. They took me in the back. They let me have full run of the place, all the stuff behind the scenes. I got to see the library where all the works of all the ufologists are being kept. And it was actually closed for renovation at the time, but they let me in to see it anyway. And it was really humbling being there, amongst the words of all the greats. I mean, we're talking Stanley Friedman, the whole 9 yards. It's really, if you're into UFOs, it's worth the trip. Roswell's actually a pretty cool little town. I definitely recommend doing that. But listen, I am going to cut the stream. I've got some other stuff to do. Again, this was just kind of a test, but again, I want to thank Snoopy for coming out. I appreciate it. And I'm going to be doing this. I think I'm going to do Wednesday nights, probably 10 o'clock Mountain Time or something, but I'm still playing with the time slot and all that. But I invite you to come back next time I stream, okay? All right. Well, listen, again, I appreciate everybody for coming by.